Hello and welcome to today's webinar session. My name is Nina Passanante and joining me today is Tangent Solutions Director Tom Holmes. Today we're going to give you an overview of DataCove, Tangent's email archiving solution, and then we're going to jump right into a demo of the product. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Nina. Like Nina said, my name's Tom Holmes, and I've been part of the DataCove Solutions group here at Tangent for the last 15 years or so. So we're excited to give everyone a quick overview of the DataCove, as we've actually just come out with a new release that might make it a little bit more streamlined for some folks out there. This demo is really for anybody who may have an archive system in place and perhaps are looking for a less complex deployment, a less expensive deployment, and an easier managed deployment, or for folks that are new to archiving and still developing their retention policy. It's also important to note that whilst we're focusing on email, the DataCove can also archive other forms of media, such as social media, Twitter and Facebook, as well as websites. So for many of you in the public sector who have public-facing websites and put information on there that requires you to archive it, DataCove can go ahead and archive that too, all within a central repository. DataCove is actually in its 7th or 8th version. We started in 2008, right after the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure came down and said digital information is now permissible in state and federal courts. So the DataCove was born out of that, and since then we've deployed the solution into hundreds of public institutions as well as a few in the private sector, and we've always focused on usability. We've always focused on cost of entry, and we've never focused on per mailbox. So this is a solution that's designed to help you enforce your legal policies, whatever your policies might be, your retention policies, and easily adapt to that. It also allows users, if you choose to search the interface and recover emails should you want to, but I would say 80% of our customers don't give their end users the permission to search their email box. However, the functionality is there. As I've mentioned, the big factors with the DataCove, and the reason it's been so popular over the years, is because it's a truly plug-and-play solution. Now, plug and play, we offer the solution in 3 main delivery methods. We have an appliance, an on-prem solution. So for folks who prefer to have their archive in their data center or in a colo location, they can deploy it there and have it on premises in an appliance format. These again aren't sized per mailbox; they're sized on the size of the actual unit itself. So we determine how much mail you need to keep for how long. We also determine daily averages, monthly averages, quarterly averages, and annual averages, so we can size it appropriately for your retention policy. And then the DataCove will automatically purge those emails once the retention policy hits. We also deliver the solution in a VM model, so it supports both Hyper-V, Microsoft's Hyper-V, and ESXi VMware. So if you have a virtual infrastructure and you're looking to not add another appliance, we can certainly provide the software for you. And again, we size it out appropriately, not on a per seat level. The third and perhaps the biggest climber, or the most requested, is our complete cloud solution. That's completely off premises. It's hosted in a data center. We take care of the backup. We just take care of the disaster recovery. We take care of the uptime. And again, we carve out an instance for you that's appropriate to the size for your organization. Again, we're not doing it on a per mailbox. We're doing it on a capacity level. And those 3 are the main delivery methods, and we've had folks that have started on one and decided that another method is appropriate for them. It certainly fits in line with folks that are moving to their more of a cloud-first deployment. Let me jump straight into the DataCove here. I'm going to show you how the interface looks. I'm going to show you from the perspective of an administrator how you would administer this, how you would deploy this. And then I want to show you how you can actually recover emails, because at the end of the day, that's what an archive is for. Once we've configured the solution, once we've deployed it and we're capturing emails, we want to make the recovery method as simple as possible and as natural as possible to users. As I switch screens here. So the DataCove is a web-based interface. Once we set it up, we'll create some logins so you can get in. I'm gonna go in as a super admin here, so you'll see all the functionality of the DataCove. As I log into the solution, you can set any of the pages that you like as your home page, meaning the page that you land on. I set this to a search. I'm going to come back to this in just a moment, so I'll show you the capabilities of search and what's supported. Most folks within the IT department perhaps would like a daily dashboard, a snapshot of what's happened over the course of the previous day or the previous month, to look at capacity, to look at email flow, to look at things like that. So you can really determine which page you'd want to be your first site. I'm going to jump over to the configuration tab here, because this is where it all kind of begins. I think it's important to note too that the DataCove is ubiquitous when we talk about support for email systems. So 95% would probably be on some form of Microsoft, whether that's Exchange on-prem or Office 365 Exchange Online. DataCove supports them all. It also supports some other systems too, although those seem to be dying out in quick succession here, but it does support the GoDaddies if you use those. It does support the Linux base. Lotus Notes was a big one for a while, and so is GroupWise. So if any of you out there are on an older system, DataCove can likely support that archive, but also perhaps help with the migration of that system if you're looking to migrate the emails off a little bit more of an antiquated email platform to a cloud-based or a newer version of what you have. The first thing to do is make sure we have connection, and I don't want to get too down in the weeds in terms of how the technical components to this, but essentially what DataCove does is it grabs emails from a catch-all account. We can call it a journal account, and there's different language for different mail servers, but it's basically a repository where we're pooling all messages, making a copy of all messages, and the DataCove is going to connect to that account and pull it across into the DataCove solution. The nice thing about this is it's done on a transport level. It's not done on a user mailbox level. So this tool, this solution is completely transparent, or completely invisible, I should say, to an end user. They wouldn't know that they're being archived, nor should they need to know that. But it's pulling those messages out, and it goes through a number of processes once we capture that information. Number one, it's going to index the email. It's going to fully index the email and chop it up so it renders it searchable. Then it's going to assign a policy towards it. And that policy is dependent on your legal policy. It might be 3 years, it might be 5 years, depending on which sector you fall into, will determine how long you'd want to keep that message for. And then it'll be saved locally onto the DataCove and backed up appropriately once we set the backup configuration. I think it's really a key to say that once DataCove grabs that email, we can set it to delete that email out of your journal account. So perhaps you don't want a copy of your email locally on your Exchange server if you're running an on-premises 2016 Exchange server. DataCove can go ahead and delete that message, so it doesn't put an overload on your Exchange server. For cloud systems, not too much of a problem, but DataCove can enforce the mechanism of cleaning up after itself. So this is where we set out all the configurations up, and it doesn't matter how many mail systems you have. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you have a deployment with different mail systems, which is rare but happens. You can configure as many fetches as you want to pull in the email messages simultaneously. The next thing we do is determine our data retention policy. And one of the benefits of the DataCove is the granularity that you can get from this. There isn't a sector or an organization that would have identical legal requirements. There's broad requirements that are sector based. For example, healthcare, the rigorously enforced ones are healthcare and finance, which may be on the longer side. But when it comes down to public sector, local government, for example, or even public education, it's a little bit more of a gray area. It's a little bit more of it's up to you what you think is appropriate. And again, it goes state by state. So if you're in Texas, it might be slightly different to California, which might be slightly different to Illinois, and so on and so forth. So the DataCove does a really good job of being able to just point and click your way through the retention policy creation. And this is how you do it. You can actually separate it in various ways. Most organizations would have a global policy. So they would say, we're going to keep emails for 7 years. After 7 years, it doesn't matter who you are in the organization, we're going to delete you after 7 years, and we'll keep 7 years worth of data in our archive. Some a little bit more, a little lesser, maybe on the 3 to 5 year mark, and some even less than that, which would be on the 1 year mark. In some instances, you may have a global retention policy, but folks within a department, or if you support different domains, for instance, a PD, a police department, or a fire department within an organization, they are required to have a slightly longer or shorter retention policy. And the folks associated with those departments and those correspondents will be put into a separate bucket, if you like, and have the retention policy applied just for them. And that's easily done. If I set a global policy of, say, 7 years, and then I want to say the human resources department, I want to keep for 6 years, I'm going to go ahead and say the IT department for a year, and so on and so forth here. So these are the departments that I'm showing here. Some are the groups within Active Directory. So it can link into your Active Directory and mirror the group structure that you already have, or you can create local groups and put in individuals into those groups, as I did for test here. And then you can manipulate the retention policy how you see fit. You can also do by domain. So like I said, if you have an @pd.gov or whatever your domain is, and keep it longer, you can certainly do that. All the way down to individual addresses. Now, rarely do folks have one or two people that have a longer policy. Some may, if you're the higher levels of government, or perhaps the board within a school district, or within a public company, you may have folks that you'd want to put into this bucket. This is often used for legal hold and legal compliance. And so, for instance, if you got a FOIA request and it was between an individual and a contractor, say, or an outside individual, your immediate course of action would be to apply legal hold to that individual mailbox. And the way you do that, and I'll use myself as an example here, is go ahead and put them in and then say forever. That means this is going to override anything that you've put above it. And so now none of my emails will be deleted. So you've obliged to that FOIA request, and now you're able to recover those emails indefinitely, which is exactly what you want to do. And if in the unfortunate case you get to the point where it's within a court system, and you can separate by semicolon if you or comma if you have multiple people within the organization. This extender tag is an interesting one, and it's very, very useful if you're looking to create some sort of folder structure within your archive, and rather than have a legal hold based on the individual, you're having a legal hold based about the content of the email. For example, if you come in here and say, I'm going to create a tag, so these are my tags here. I'm going to say, oh, I'll call it demo 1. I may have used that before. Emails that contain the word flower. I'm going to create that tag. If I check this box here, it's automatically going to be a legal hold folder. That means that any email, when I set up my search, that contains the word flower is going to be held indefinitely. It's not going to be deleted. So DataCove is going to do the work of sifting through the emails, finding your search criteria, and applying a legal hold, regardless of who it was sent to a legal hold tag. Means it's not going to be deleted. The nice thing about that is you've got all these emails within your search criteria in one place, right? That's constantly being amended as new emails come in. So you can download it in a variety of formats and provide it as evidence or as a request and oblige like that. And if I didn't put that legal hold tag on there, I can just create the tag, come back over to my retention policy, and I could demo 1 and put a 4-year on all the emails associated with that, which is handy if you have meeting minutes, board minutes, if you have items that you're obligated, perhaps contracts between vendors that you're obligated to keep the details of that contract for a certain amount of time after the contract is executed. There are a number of ways that you can isolate contents of emails and put them into a folder to determine how long they need to be saved per your legal department. So quite flexible in terms of saving emails, certainly very easy and user-friendly to do, and it's, again, very point-and-click orientated. Also, regardless of which mechanism or which method you're using, whether it's the virtual machine, the VM, the appliance, or the cloud, the interface is pretty much the same. I think the only difference would be if you were in the cloud instance, there wouldn't be the backup tab, right? Because that backup is taken care of as it should be when you look at a cloud deployment. Let's jump over to the email viewing page here, as I think this kind of ties everything together. This was my home page, if you remember, and this allows us to search for those emails quickly. It allows us to recover those emails. It allows us to download those emails, provide those emails, and also tag those emails should we want to. So these search terms here are completely customizable. I can add a search term by just clicking this box, and these are the indexed parts of the email, right? So when that email first comes in, the email is getting chopped up into all these little bits of parts for this purpose, so I can search on them and I can recover them. Obviously, the more information that I have about that email, the more accurate that recovery will be. But when you're dealing, and that's certainly true when you're dealing with millions and millions of emails. But perhaps you don't know what you're looking for, but you know it was sent from somebody to somebody with this domain. And you can take a 30,000-foot view and sort of sift your way and amend the search as you're doing your e-discovery. So let's just do one for fun here. I'm going to go, let's do before today, just for example. And this is a demo box, so there won't be that much interesting information in here. I'm going to get rid of this because I don't want to search on that right now, but I'm going to pull in the email to from. That means I'm going to look for an email sent before today to or from, and I'll use a wildcard at tangent. And let's have a look, see what it comes back with. Okay, so a number of things, a few older ones, some very old ones actually here. But you can see that I came back with those pretty quickly. Now, granted, there isn't a lot of emails on this box, but I think what you'll find is the search and recovery speed of the email, especially with the full SSD array within the solution, will provide for pretty nippy results. And what we've tried to do here is really capture the workflow of a typical email. You have your inbox, if you like, on the side, and your display of the email over here, which is kind of a goofy one. I think we did an Easter egg hunt a little while ago. But this is the email, and this is a familiar looking email. I can amend that search. I can say, right, I found everything that I want with Tangent, but now I want, oops, I just got rid of that. So let me go do that again. But I'm going to add, oh gosh, sorry about this. I keep clicking the wrong thing. Add that. And then I'll do perhaps the subject line. Right, so it's narrowed it down, right? And that's what I was looking for. I just put that in there. It also found another one here. So you'll notice a few things about this. Number one, it's keeping the headers intact. If it was a BCC on that, it would also extrapolate the BCC, which is tremendously helpful. Also, it's showing the attachment, which I can click on. It'll open up over here, and I've got the attachment here, fully intact. DataCove also dedupes the attachments, so you'll have single instance storage and compresses everything. So the storing capability of the solution is pretty good. So here I found the information that I'd want. Now, say for example, I wanted to save this and run this. I can go ahead and save this criteria, and I'll call it. And now I've saved that search, right? So if that's a search that I run periodically, it's saved for me. I don't have to recreate that search. And obviously, that wasn't a lot of effort. But as you get into the more complex searches where you're using grouping, different Boolean logic, spacing, all those types of searches that you're really trying to dig down into your emails, that comes tremendously helpful. And by the way, the help menu up here is content sensitive. So regardless of what page you're on, you can click the help and see the help for that specific page. So if I go into my saved searches here, I can go into demo one, where did I go? Demo one, and you'll see that's my flower email. If you remember on the configuration, that's where I had it, I kept the same description here. Now I've got a couple of options. I could run that. So rather than me recreating it, I can just come in here, click play and run it, and it'll find those emails for me. Better yet, I can schedule it. And this is where it gets really cool, is that I can go ahead and schedule that every day or every weekday at a specific time, 10:30. And I want it to email dcadmin@tangent.com. And so it'll email me if it finds anything with that meets that search criteria. In this case, it was found within the subject line and to or from anybody at Tangent. But not only that, I can go ahead and put it into that folder that I created. And so what does that mean? That means that not only am I getting notified that an email is being sent that meets my description, it's also automatically being put into a separate folder out of the global and put into that 4-year retention that I created. And so I can view that at a later time, and it's not going to be deleted, which is pretty neat, especially if you have a legal hold going on, especially if you're looking for some language that might not be perhaps suitable for an email exchange or contract negotiations or things like that. That becomes a useful tool to take a proactive approach to an e-discovery, rather than you going in there and fiddling around and figuring out search and then emailing, is this the one? Is this the one? You can set up their search criteria as they define it, set it and forget it, and then you get emailed appropriately. Last thing I want to cover here as I wrap it up is the ability to export in various formats. And again, we've intentionally kept this flexible because everybody requires a different format. You may have a council member that wants it in a printed way. You may have somebody who wants it on a USB stick. You might have somebody who wants it in an EML format. So it really depends on how you want to, or how they want the information. You can do it directly from the DataCove interface. What I would say is, regardless of how you export this information, whether you forward it, whether you download it to a zip file, whatever it might be, DataCove never removes that message off the solution. The only thing that you can, the only way or the only method to delete information off the DataCove is through policy, is through retention policy. And that's deliberate. You don't want somebody to come in there and say, shift, down, delete, right? You want the ability to have it there until your retention policy is expired. Now, you could theoretically go in there and say, I'm going to change my retention policy because I've written a dodgy email, which is perfectly well, it's possible. The trouble is that DataCove keeps everything and logs everything through an audit log. So it'll see me, Tom H, logging into the DataCove, creating all these messages and logging that information and exactly where I did it and when I did it. So if any discrepancies come up and I said, no, it wasn't me, they'll be able to say, well, somebody, took hold of your computer and did this, that, and the other. So it gives you that other level of transparency, that other level of insurance to make sure you don't have any bad actors. And that log is kept indefinitely. It's only a small text file, so it's nothing too crazy, but you've got that extra level of transparency. Other than that, there are ways to tie it into Active Directory and create groups and give folk conditional access depending on how they want to see the information. It also allows you to give them our Outlook plugin. So if you have folks running Outlook and they want to not faff around with the DataCove, they can just log straight into to Outlook and run their searches from there. The administration side still has to be done through the web console, but the search and recoveries can be done locally, which makes it a little less complicated and increases user adoption if they don't have to go learn a whole new interface, but it's familiar to their Outlook workflow. And that's only if you want end users to be able to have access to their information. And again, you can set up the permissions. So I wouldn't be able to search as an end user on my colleagues' emails, but you might have a manager that needs to see his team's emails or have access to it, or you might have the legal counsel who wants to have access to it. Permissions are based on how you set it up. And like I said at the start, 90% of folks keep it in the background. This is an IT tool used with legal. Should they ask for a request, it's just giving you that extra level of insurance. So with that, we're going to go ahead and send this recording so you can review it. We're also going to give you the opportunity to log in for yourselves and play around with the DataCove. And obviously we'd be welcoming your feedback and your questions. And that's it for me today. Thank you, everybody, and I hope everybody's staying nice and safe, and we will talk soon.